Good afternoon and welcome back to the Machine Shop. Another exciting video in the Machine Shop series. This afternoon I'm going to run through the process for making the displacer guide. We've been doing that in the shop for the last little bit, so I'm just going to run through that and talk my way through it so you can have a quick view if you need to. I'm going to take off my watch and I'm going to put on my safety glasses so I can get started. Safety boots are on, safety glasses, I'm ready to roll. So I've come over to the lathe today. The first thing I want to do is pick a tool. I'm going to use a high-speed steel tool. I'm going to be cutting a piece of brass because that's what the drawing calls for. So high-speed steel tool with the brass. I want to run at 800 RPMs. I check my two levers up top. I check my lever down bottom, and I am in fact in the right places to be running the speed. I'm going to take my tool holder and I'm going to rotate it around. I'm just going to set it up square for now. I'm going to get myself a tool holder. Always clean it out to make sure there's no chips underneath to hold us up. And I'm going to lay that in the tool post. I'm going to take the tool that I want. I'm going to look to see if it's sharp and looks reasonable. I'm going to use it in with the cutting edge pointing toward the chuck. I'm going to have about an inch sticking out. I'll snug those bolts. Tighten them up with a wrench because I certainly don't want it to come out. And I'll lock this one here. Now what I want to do is check it against the center. So I have a center in here. I can take it out by feeding it all the way back if it was a chuck in there. I'm just going to bang that in. I'm going to lock the center, it doesn't move. I'm going to rotate the tool now back towards the center. Lock it up so it won't move. I'm going to bring it back, feed it into the center, and I want to make sure that it's right on center. And if you look at that tool, it's great. Somebody must have had it set up before for me, so that's good. I'll just lock it to make sure it doesn't move. I'm ready to start turning. Before I start turning, what I want to do is move my tool so that it will face and turn, because I can do both operations then without readjusting my tool. So I'll put my stock in. I want to leave about half of it, a little over half of it sticking out. Make sure it's tight. The reason I'm leaving more than half out is I need to machine the outside diameter because we don't actually have the 1 1/4 stock. We're using 1 3/8. I need to machine it down to 1 1/4. And I want to face and turn the part. So I'm going to bring my tool in now and check my angles. So if you look, the angle is a little bit too steep, so I'm going to turn it a little bit. Now I can tighten the screw in the top, and if you look at the piece, now I can machine the face and I can machine the outside. So I can machine both here now, and that will work out great for me. Okay, so I'm going to turn the lathe on. Before I do anything, I want to face the part to make sure I got a nice flat surface to start. So I'll bring the tool over, I'll touch the face, I'll move the tool out. Now I'm going to move the tool closer to the chuck, the amount I want to remove, and I'm just going to feed straight in. So I'm facing the part. Next thing is I want to machine this piece to 1 1/4 inch. I'm going to touch the tool on the outside. First thing I want to do is remove a little bit of material so I got a nice round surface to measure from. I'll take a small cut. And I'm going to hold the outside so the tool won't move, and I'm going to roll this to 0. So I've now zeroed the tool on the outside. I need to remove material to take it to 1 1/4 inch. When I turn my caliper on, I'm going to check it for 0. It's zeroed. The lathe gauge is in millimeters. The drawing for this, the outside diameter of the piece, when we order stock, it's always in inch. So it needs to be 1 1/4 inch. So I'm going to open my caliper to 1 1/4 inch, which is 1 inch 250. And I'm going to set it to 0. I can set 0 anywhere on the scale. I set it to 0 so that when I put it on the outside, it tells me that I need to remove 0.049 thousandths of an inch. The dial is in metric, so I just convert that to metric with the caliper, and I need to take off 1.25 millimeters to make this part the right size outside. So I'm going to do that. I'm at 0, so I'm going to go in 1.25. And now I'm going to turn the lathe on. I'm going to take a small test cut. When I look at the way that this part is machined, this is all going to be machined off after. So if I've made a mistake in my calculations now, I will be able to see that. And I'm 0.01 of a millimeter smaller than the part should be. That's definitely within tolerance. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to machine the part all the way along. I'll machine over till I'm almost to the jaws, and then I'll come back. So now I've machined the part to 1.25 inches. I'm going to set my tool back to 0 again. Now I'm going to hold this so it won't move. I'm going to slide the scale. Now the tool is at 0. The part I'm making is 2 parts back to back, and the drawing tells me that the part should be 17 millimeters outside. I'm going to close my caliper. I'm going to reset it to 0. Excuse me. Reset it to 0, and I'm going to open it up to 17 millimeters. That's where I need to go. So if I set that at 17 millimeters and set it to 0, now I can measure the part. It tells me I need to take 14.72 off. Now I need to take that over. It tells me 13 millimeters on the drawing. So I'm going to close my caliper. I'm going to set it up to 0, and now I'm going to open it to 13. So I can use my caliper right now. Move this tailstock out of my way. I can bring this over, and I can actually measure 13 millimeters with my caliper right here. I've just lined the tool up, so it's right in line with 13 millimeters. So I got a visual of where I'm going to go. I'm actually going to turn on the lathe now, feed straight in, and it makes a little line at 13. So I'm at 0 on the outside now. I have to take off 14 millimeters. I'll take 10 to start, so I'll go 3 at a time. I'll take 3 millimeters off. I'll take 3 millimeters off. I'll take another 3 millimeters off. And I'll take another 3. So now I'm going to check again. So I'm going to set my caliper back to 17 that I want. Check this. And I need to take 2.8 off. So I'm at 20, so that's fine. I'll go 1, I'll go 2, and I'll go 8. Should be able to machine up to the surface now. And this time when I get to the back, instead of feeding back out, I'm going to feed out away from the center, and that's going to make that back face nice and flat for me. So now I'll check my measurement again, and I'm 0, which is what I want to be, which is 17. To check my depth, I'm going to set my caliper to 0, and I'm going to measure my depth as well. And when I check the measurement, it should be 13, and it's 17.73, so I need to take 0.25 off. This is not a critical measurement, so I'm not really going to be concerned about measuring that too accurately. So I'm just going to go in a little bit, touch it on the face, and machine off a little bit here. Check my measurements. And I'm 12.98, which is certainly within tolerance. Before I take the part and turn it over, because I'm making 2 parts back to back, I'll remove the sharp edges. So I'll just skip the foil. I'm all holding it in my left hand, and I'm taking the sharp edges off. Now I can take the part out of the lathe. I can flip it over, tighten it up. I'm holding the part that I machined because I need the rest of it out. So what I want to do now is take off the outside of this part to be the same as that. Now I can measure this, go through the same measuring system, but I know that this is the right diameter because I checked it. So I'll just touch my tool on that and call it 0. So I'll bring my tool over. I'll just touch the outside. I'll set my tool now to 0. And I'll come over here and set my tool to 0. Machine in, and it'll give me the same diameter. I'm going to face the part now, so I'll just touch it, bring it out. I'm going to move it over the amount I want to take off, feed straight in. I'm going to take a little more, and there it is. Now I can tell that I'm facing the part. So I have my size there, so now what I want to do is I want to measure over 13. So I'll use my caliper set on 13. I'll move my tool in and bring it up so it's right in line with the end of the caliper. I'll feed straight in. The outside is now on 0 because I zeroed it, and I need to take off 14. I know that because I measured it on the other side. It's the same part. So I'm going to go in 3. I'm going to go in 3. I'm going to go in another 3. When I say 3, I'm talking millimeters, and I'll go in 3 more millimeters, which will give me 12 millimeters, and I'll then measure because I want to be sure my measurement is right. Okay, so I'm going to set my caliper on 0. I'm going to open it up to 17 because that's what the measurement needs to be. I'm going to measure this, and I have to take off 2.8. 2.8 means I go 1, 2.8. And I'll feed over to the line. Remember to clean up the back face by feeding straight out. I'm going to go another little bit because I didn't quite clean up the line. And I'm going to check this. It's 0, so that's what I want. I'm going to check this, which is 13.16, which is certainly within tolerance. So before I part the piece, I'm going to take the sharp edges off. And I'm going to put in a parting tool. So to take out the parting tool and turning tool and put in a parting tool, I have it in a different holder, so I'll just lift the part out. I'll put this one in, but I have to check it for center. So I'm going to swing it around, bring it over to the center, and it's a little tiny bit low. I'll move it a little. Call that good. Swing this over. Now I need to make sure that the tool is perfectly in line with the feed, so it feeds straight in. So I'm using the side of the piece that I just turned to do that, and I'll tighten it up there. I need to go cut this piece in half. I've left a little bit extra, so I'm going to eyeball it for in the middle, but I could measure this. It's 19. The tool is 2.5, so I take 2.5 from the 19, and then I divide what's left by 2 for 8 1/4 or whatever it is. So right now I can just feed straight in because I know there's lots of material there. So I'm going to hold. I've tightened everything up, so I'm just going to feed straight in and part the piece off. So the parting and the turning tool are a little bit different in the way that they cut, but they must be on center in order to work properly. So you need to be sure you're not standing in the fly zone when you're parting because the piece might come out. Okay. Now that I've parted the piece off, we just need to finish the back. So I'm going to take the parting tool out, put the turning tool back in, and I'm ready to finish up the back side. The back side is very similar to the front. You're turning a small spigot, but you will drill and center drill and drill a hole in the other side. And that's a little quick tutorial on the turning of that part. Have a great day.